Hey guys, how you doing? Today we're... Oh, wait, no, that's not right. Hold on a second. Oh, there we go. Hey everybody, how you doing? Are you ready for another VIVRE card video? Well, we're gonna have to wait until next month when the next packs are released. But in the meantime, we have another VIVRE card video! As in, like, a video on the actual VIVRE cards, like the life paper that is used by the characters in One Piece, not the visual dictionary there. So yeah, I think it's about time we talked about this. And you know what? I was very fortunate, okay? Because, you know, when I do discussion videos on the various aspects of like technology in One Piece, it's always good to have something like a prop with me. Like when I did that video on Zoro's swords, I went out and ordered Zoro's swords, you know, just so I had them with me, you know. I did the video on the Den Mushi. A fan of mine actually sent me a Den Mushi, so that was really cool. I could not for the life of me find any websites offering VIVRE cards. I checked eBay, I checked all these websites, I couldn't find them. It's like, why is nobody selling VIVRE cards? I need VIVRE cards for this video. Finally, I ran across this guy on Etsy that agreed to make me some VIVRE cards for the low price of only $49.99 per card, plus tax and shipping, of course. So I decided to get a bunch of them, you know, because he only sold them in bulk for some reason. So I got like 10 here. Check these out. Authentic VIVRE cards from One Piece. I think these are the one of a kind, honestly, alright? I'd give you some, but they're pretty rare, okay? So I'm just gonna hang on to these. Okay, so... VIVRE cards, or life paper, I believe vivre just is French for to live, so it makes sense, is another example of weird technology in the One Piece world. Although, I will say, unlike the log pose that follows the magnetic charge of each island, that's easy enough to understand. I mean, there's a few things about the log pose you can kind of nitpick, like how exactly does the needle, like, know, like, okay, this island's magnetic charge has now been logged, and we're now going to follow to the next one. And then when we get to the next one, after that gets logged, it's not going to point back to the one before that. It's going to remember it already had that logged, and it's going to continue on to the ones it hasn't logged yet. I could nitpick about stuff like that, but overall, I understand how the log pose works. There are the Den Mushi, of course, which are not really technology. They're snails that humans attach technology to in order to communicate, which, now that I actually think about it, are the Den Mushi considered cyborgs? Because think about it, there's snails that exist in nature, just ordinary snails, basically. Humans just take, like, fax machines and speaker grills and receivers and just attach them to them, but technically they would be cyborg snails, okay? But then, you get to VIVRE cards, which, I mean, I'm gonna pull a Luffy here and just say... they're mystery paper, or magical paper, because, you know, you got devil fruits, which are probably going to be all explained by, you know, Vegapunk, exactly how devil fruits work. Devil fruits, just from an outside perspective looking in, you know, they're basically magic, but I'm sure there is going to be, like, a scientific explanation for it, at least in One Piece. When it comes to VIVRE cards... I don't know if we're ever going to get an explanation exactly how they function, so they might as well just be magical sheets of paper as far as the One Piece world is concerned right now. And I'm fine with that, it deepens the lore. Now, Oda did drop us actually an explanation on how a VIVRE card is made. During Thriller Bark, of course, the Straw Hats had no idea what VIVRE cards were when Lola was explaining it to them, so they said, oh yeah, they only have the shops that make these in the New World, okay? So people in the first half of the Grand Line in Paradise and the Four Blues probably haven't heard of them very often. So what you gotta do is, you gotta take your fingernail clippings to a special shop that exists in the New World. I'm sure there's more than one of these shops. You know, you take them to the New World, and then they will make you a piece of paper. They take your fingernail clippings and somehow embed them or turn them into a piece of paper, or like mix that in with, I don't know how you make paper, but they mix that into the process. And you get a VIVRE card, which is a life paper, which is forever just magically linked to the person that the fingernail clippings came from. Alright, so that's the general premise on how a sheet of VIVRE card is actually made, but as for the actual process, like step by step, we just don't know that, okay? Personally, I like to think that maybe the person that's making the cards, you know, maybe they don't even need fingernails. Maybe it's like Yoshikage Kira, and that's just his fetish, and he's like, oh yes, pay me in fingernail clippings, and I'll make you some VIVRE cards. Oh yeah, thank you. Oh, delicious. Alright, yeah, here you go. I didn't even need these. That's just my thing. Here you go. No, it makes sense why you need fingernails, or maybe not just fingernails, maybe your hair, maybe a drop of your blood, maybe anything that you need, like DNA, part of your body that you can give them that's easily removable, I guess, so hair and fingernails would probably be the most used. And then, you know, they put it through that process, and then boom, VIVRE card. Now, The way that that was explained by Lola is you had to go to a special shop, right? That isn't the only way to make VIVRE cards, okay? Because when Sabo ran into Luffy at Dressrosa, Sabo took part of Luffy, I'm assuming his fingernails or something off of Luffy, maybe some of his hair, and then before Sabo left, after the battle with Doflamingo, he made a special VIVRE card for Luffy, and it was like a full sheet, and then each member of the Grand Fleet took a piece, and Bellamy took a piece. So Sabo, within the span of only a few days, if that, was able to take some DNA, take some, something off of Luffy, and then turn that into a card. Alright, so either there's a way you can do this by yourself, like a make-your-own VIVRE card starter kit, like you could go to the store and buy it, or these shops that Lola talked about, like these VIVRE card shops, you know, they're completely non-existent in Paradise. Like, there's none of them in Paradise, but in the New World, they're like Starbucks, like they're on every single street corner, like every single island might have a VIVRE card shop, which, considering how often we've seen VIVRE cards since the time skip, that would actually make sense. Just waiting for that one businessman, that entrepreneur, to travel to the Paradise side of the Grand Line and open up the first VIVRE card shop. He would make a killing. Maybe there's something about the New World, though. Maybe there's some technique or some resource that can only be found in the New World that you need to have in order to make VIVRE cards, because it's like, you'd think there would be another ingredient to this. You think there would have to be. It's just like, alright, step one, all of the things you need in order to make paper. Like I said, I don't know how you actually make... You know what? I'm gonna stop the video right here, and I'm gonna go learn how you make paper, okay? Just give me like 5... It'll be like 2 seconds for you. It'll be like 5 minutes for me. Tekking101 crash course! I know trees are involved, but I want to know everything. Alright, let's do this! Okay, here's the deal. So, apparently trees have wood, right? Okay, you're with me so far. Okay. In that wood, there's a thing called pulp, alright? You need to extract the pulp. It's mostly made up of cellulose and, like, this natural glue stuff called lignin, and, you have to use the pulp in order to create paper, alright? Now, there's a bunch of different processes you can do here. There's not just one way to make paper, alright? One of the processes actually involves bleach, so everything just ties back together, right? So, there's a bunch of different ways, but the basic premise is you need the cellulose and the lignin, and that makes pulp, and then you need to figure out a way to, like, turn that pulp into paper, alright? But that's the basic ingredients for paper, okay? And then you just heat it and dry it out, and there's water in there too, of course. So, okay, right. So, that means that somewhere in the New World, there are these shops, right? And the shops, they take your fingernails in order to make VIVRE cards. So that means they also have to have a lot of this pulp and that cellulose and everything. That's probably easy to get. What I'm saying, though, is there has to be another kind of ingredient, like a special ingredient that you can maybe only find in the New World, that you have to incorporate into this paper so that it actually exhibits the traits of VIVRE card or life paper, because the traits that VIVRE cards actually show are quite impressive. So VIVRE cards cannot burn or become wet. Alright, so already that's kind of a big deal. Like, okay, you have a piece of paper that is not, like, indestructible. You can still tear it and everything, but it will not burn, and it will not be moist if you dip it in the water, alright? So that kind of adds some magical properties to it right there, right? Maybe there's, like, in each of these shops in the New World, there's, like, a unicorn they have chained up in the back, and they use, like, the unicorn's, magic unicorn rainbow blood in order to turn it into... This is the dark truth behind how VIVRE cards are made, you know, fingernails, wood pulp, and unicorn rainbow blood. That's how it works. And it's like, you don't, it's like the way that chicken nuggets are made. Like, you don't really want to know, it's just, here's the final product. You don't want to know how these were manufactured, alright? Just take your card and have a nice day. Alright, so you can't burn them, and they can't get wet, but you can rip them, and then the main feature of a VIVRE card, there's really two. The first one is that the paper will reflect the, conditions that the person that it's made from, you know, have. So if the person is really sick and is, like, near death or is gravely injured or anything like that, the paper, regardless of how, you know, big the piece of paper you have is, like if Luffy, for example, has his giant, you know, sheet of VIVRE card that Sabo made for him, and then each one of the Grand Fleet just took a little piece of it, you know, proportional to the amount of paper they have, and if Luffy's life was in mortal danger, it will begin to burn. Only in that case will it burn on its own, and then it will slowly get smaller and smaller you know, as, you know, that Luffy's life force begins to diminish. And if Luffy were to ever to die, probably not going to happen, but if it ever were to happen, the paper would completely disappear. It's gone. It's never coming back, right? However, if, let's say, Luffy is gravely injured, the VIVRE card begins to burn down, but then Luffy is saved by somebody and heals and gets better, the paper will magically repair itself. Yeah, so my unicorn blood hypothesis is not too far out of the ballpark right now, okay? It's one thing to just be like, alright, this is special paper. It's connected to you. I'm like, alright, that's a little bit magical. It can't burn and it can't get wet. I'm like, alright, that's also a little bit kind of magical. I mean, I guess not really. I mean, there's maybe kind of resins you could put around paper in our world that wouldn't make it burn or get wet, but alright. So, you know, when someone gets injured, it will begin to burn away, and if they get better, it will just magically repair itself. So you're like creating matter all of a sudden. I'm like, all right, yeah, magic. So that's the thing there. That's one function of VIVRE cards, okay? So you always can keep tabs on other people, you know? I guess in the One Piece world where, you know, you don't have texting. You can't just let people know. Like, Luffy just can't take out his phone and be like, yo, Ace, how you doing? You okay, buddy? Send. Ace sends it back. Ah, dang it, Luffy. I got the crap beat out of me by Blackbeard the other day. I'm in prison. I was like, oh man, that sucks, Ace. You know, you can't really do that kind of stuff in One Piece. So it's nice to have just a handy device or piece of technology that allows you to just always know how somebody else, somebody you care about, is doing. All right, so that's good. And then of course, the whole reason Luffy went on that side trip to Impel Down was because of his VIVRE card. I mean, he read the news about Ace in the paper, but it was really when Luffy looked at his VIVRE card and it was like slowly getting smaller, and then everything kind of clicked together when he was on Amazon Lily, is when he started to realize, like, huh, yeah, this card is getting kind of small here, and he's gonna be executed by the Marines. Oh, that's not. We should probably go save him now, okay? So yes, that's the situation there. The other feature of the VIVRE cards that are, you know, make it useful in the One Piece world, is that no matter where the person is in the world, the VIVRE card will always slowly be pulled to that person's location. It doesn't tell you how far they are, it'll just point you to wherever they are generally. So, for example, Luffy gets Rayleigh's VIVRE card, all the Straw Hats got Rayleigh's VIVRE card, you know, so they knew where to meet back up for the coding when it was finished. But then Kuma appeared and separated them all over the world. Luffy was hundreds of miles away from Sabaody at that point. He was on Amazon Lily now, but even so, he took Rayleigh's card, he still had it, and then he sets it down, and then slowly the card will... and then you know where they're going. So also keep in mind, in order to keep a VIVRE card on you, you should probably like keep it somewhere like in your pocket, you know, where it cannot just, because it'll just literally leave you if you just leave it on its own. If you just like set your VIVRE card down on a table for too long, you know, you'll come back. It'll be like that scene in The Iron Giant at the end of it when Hogarth sees that screw that's like tapping on his window, like trying to get back to the giant. I love The Iron Giant. Wasn't that such a good movie? I like the ending. There needs to be a sequel to that movie. I know sequels can kind of ruin franchises. I want to see a sequel to The Iron Giant, alright? I think they can make it work. They made Toy Story 4, you can make Iron Giant 2, Pixar. I don't even know if Pixar originally did it, I don't think they did. Whatever, they can do it. Iron Giant 2. The point is, though, that I'm trying to get across here is that, yeah, you'll always know where somebody is in the world. However, kind of even worse than the log pose, because the log pose, you know, it'll point you to the next island, but you do not know what is between you and that island. You know, there could be a massive storm, there could be another island that doesn't have a magnetic pull, there could be a, you know, a deep fog, you know, phantom sea that'll drag you into a realm of horrors for a few days, and like, you just don't know what dangers await in between your current location and the next destination. You just know the general direction. It's even worse with VIVRE cards, because these do not even point to islands, these point to specific people. So for example, like if you're in the East Blue and you want to know where the person is, all you have to do is take out your VIVRE card, and maybe they point in this direction, but they're all the way in the South Blue. So you got to go through like 2 comm belts and a Grand Line in order to get there. You know, that's pretty dangerous, right? On top of everything else that might kill you along the way. So that's the downside of VIVRE cards. So, you know, it is used for that, but I would imagine that's used mostly in like island by island circumstances. Like I can see like in the One Piece world, especially in the New World where they're more common, I can imagine like parents, you know, making VIVRE cards for their kids. It's like, okay, kids, now, you know, me and your father are gonna go shopping. Here's some some money, here's some berries, you can go in town and buy some stuff, take a scrap of our VIVRE cards so you know where we are after you're done shopping so you don't get lost, and then the kids give them some to their parents, and so that would actually be rather convenient to know, you know, so it's like you have one of these, somebody gets, you know, kidnapped or hurt or something, these reflect their current situation, no matter what, so honestly, these are better than having cell phones in the One Piece world, right? But I could see people using them like that, maybe on islands, but not like as a navigation tool. They're a little bit more iffy with that. The only time I think it was used in that way was when Burgess, you know, when Burgess, after Dressrosa, he stowed away on a Revolutionary Army ship, made it back to Baltigo. He's there, and he had a hand on his Den Mushi, and he's contacting Lafitte and everybody, and they're like, I found Baltigo. And he's like, well, where are you? It's like, I don't know, but I found it. Just follow my VIVRE card and get here and bring everybody. You know, we're going to have a party tonight at Baltigo. So in that situation, they had to use his VIVRE card as navigation. But like I said, it was probably more like treacherous to do that kind of method. You know, usually you should have an eternal pose or a log pose in order to guarantee you'll get to where you need to be, right? Plus, also, if you use that as a navigation tool and the person leaves the island while you're in transit or something happens to them and they die and their VIVRE card disappears, you're kind of screwed. So yes, stick to the log poses, right? Okay. So the most important that a VIVRE card has ever really played in One Piece, outside of Ace. Ace's was important, okay, because that's one of the reasons where Luffy knew where he was, and like when he was in Impel Down, the paper will constantly like, okay, Ace is somewhere lower than this. Even when they get to level 5, where Luffy thought Ace would be, the paper is still pointing down, and then after he got rescued, it's like, it was very handy to have that, because after Ivankov and Inazuma and Luffy get down to level 6 and Ace is gone, they're like, oh no, what happened to him? Like, wait, hold on. Yeah, he's going up. Oh, crap, they got here before we did. So they knew right away what happened. He's like, okay, they must have picked him up and got him out of here, so now we have to go back up. He's like, okay, right. And then finally, of course, when they finally get to Marineford and Luffy tries to save Ace and fails, there's that, you know, awesome shot there, the death of Porcus D. Ace, which I think is the name of the chapter, the death of the Porcus D. Ace. So, come on, Oda, that's a little bit of spoilers here. I mean, I wasn't, no, I was reading One Piece on the weekly basis. I don't really remember what my perspective was on that when I opened up that chapter that week, and it was just the death of Porcus D. Ace. I'm like, I think mostly, you know, reading it on a weekly basis at that point and at the end of Marineford, you could kind of tell that was going to happen. You know, like, it was no real shock to anybody, right? Maybe you thought at the very last minute he would be saved, but, you know, after you have a magma fist in your chest, I mean, not really much you can do about that, right? So, of course, when Ace finally dies, Luffy freaks out, and he has that, like, that expression on his face, and then the last shot of that chapter is Ace's VIVRE card just being snuffed out, and then, yeah, he's dead. But the other one that's really important is Lola's VIVRE card. Well, the VIVRE card that Lola had, it's actually Big Mom's VIVRE card, okay? And this became extremely relevant during Totland, of course, because Big Mom has the Soul Fruit powers, her VIVRE cards are a little different from everybody else's, okay? Because part of her essence is in the VIVRE card, and part of her soul powers is in there too. Or rather, all of the homies in Totland are programmed to obey Big Mom's will, because she's the one that created them. So, a fragment, even a small bit of Big Mom's fingernails, put into paper form is enough for the homies to obey anybody that has it. Not because they want to, they physically cannot disobey an order, because this is the aura, this is the soul energy, so to speak, of their master, so no matter who has it, even an enemy, Nami in this case, has to obey her. And man, I love that scene in the anime when Nami she figures out the VIVRE card, what power it has. She was keeping it tucked away in her her special pocket dimension this entire time, okay? So she pulls that out, right? I mean, honestly, that is what Oda's using her boobs for. I mean, that's not even me joking around. Seriously, she keeps her Climattact in there. She keeps her VIVRE card in there. Probably keeps her wallet. All this extra stuff she could probably pull out of there, right? Anyway, she pulls out the VIVRE card that Lola gave her, and Lola did not actually just directly explain, this is the VIVRE card of Big Mom, Charlotte Lindland, she's my mother, she's one of the Yonko. No, she just said, you know, this is my mama's VIVRE card, she's a big pirate in the New World, if you ever run into any problems, just contact her, she'll help you out. I'm sure Lola would feel very, very bad if Nami and Luffy ever explained to her actually what happened. Actually, it's in the newspaper. I'm sure Lola, I wonder what her reaction would have been. Because Lola and the Rolling Pirates, last time we saw them, they're at Water 7 right now. They left Thriller Bark, and instead of continuing forward, they went backwards, and they ended up at Water 7. So they're just chilling out in Water 7 right now, probably living there. I can't imagine what Lola thought when she read that paper, that article about the Straw Hats being in Totland and Big Mom chasing after them and stuff. She was probably embarrassed, like, oh no, I hope they didn't go there because I told them to. Oh, that's bad if they were in trouble and they went to Totland to get help and they ended up getting in more trouble. Like, Lola would probably feel bad about that. We need to really see Lola again. I want to see what her reaction to this whole mess is on Totland. Maybe she would apologize to Nami. I mean, Nami wouldn't hold anything against her, like after she found out everything about Lola and stuff from Chiffon and everything. But, yeah, I would like to see them, reunited. And Chiffon and Lola reunited as well, which could definitely happen now because they're both fugitives from Totland, right? So, makes sense, okay? But, yeah, so Nami, though, when she figured it out, the expressions that she strikes to the homies after being chased around this forest and being led astray and all this crazy manipulative crap, she figures out, she's like, wait a second. And then, like, she raises up the card and the homies are like, oh no! Like, I'll put that away. Oh, we're going to have some dominatrix fun tonight, aren't we? And all the homies are like, oh no. I'm just a tree. I'm just an ordinary tree, ma'am. I'm not doing anything. Alright? So yeah, Nami, her sadistic dominatrix side certainly showed there. Now, when it comes to, like, if Big Mom herself is giving the orders to the seducing woods, this isn't going to be good enough. Okay, Big Mom was not in the woods when she first had this and she first showed off the power, and so they, like, deferred to that. But if Big Mom herself is issuing the orders, she's the big honcho, she's got all of the soul energy. If this is only just a fraction, like 0.05% of her soul, they're gonna defer to that. But if Big Mom's there, yeah, it just overrides it. I'm also curious what would happen if Brook made a VIVRE card, because Brook also has a devil fruit that's related to soul energy. Well, we'll never know, because in order to make VIVRE cards, the only way we know for certain is you have to have fingernails, and Brook doesn't have fingernails. Yo! Although, if you could use hair, if you could use anything, he could take I guess I could spare a single strand of my afro, but use it well. And then he turns it into a VIVRE card, and then maybe the VIVRE card that Brook had would also emanate, like, soul energy in a way. Kind of like you ever take a seashell or something? It's like, I could hear the ocean in a seashell. Not really, but you know what I mean. Like, you take Brook's, the Soul King's VIVRE card, and you hold it up to your ear, and just like, I can hear like a little bit of a soul strum coming from it, maybe. I don't know. But certainly, devil fruits and things that afflict the soul or affect that kind of like aura around you also carry over to VIVRE cards as well. So that's important to have there. But anyway, yeah, Nami now, she got part of her VIVRE card removed. Because on Monday, when they found out during the Enraged Army, when they, captured Luffy and King Bomb and Nami and everybody, Monday grabbed Nami and kind of reached into her, pocket dimension, so to speak, and she pulled out, Lola's VIVRE card that, Nami got. But Nami was smart and she ripped it in half, so she still does have part of Big Mom's VIVRE card with her. All right, and so she still might be able to use that in Wano in some way. Like, they'll know, like, I'm sure she hasn't looked at it in a while because she's kind of busy with other stuff, and Nami doesn't know Big Mom's on the island. The only Straw Hats that do know that, I think, are Chopper and Luffy right now. I don't think anybody else knows that. Any other Straw Hats, anyway, know that she's on the island. So, maybe when she takes out the VIVRE card and something's happening with Big Mom's card, she'll know she's on the island or something of that nature, right? So, still might be relevant to the story for her to have at least half of this, right? But, hey, you can't blame Amande. She tried. I mean, she's reaching in there and she's like, oh my god, how much stuff do you have in here? Okay, I found it. I found the VIVRE card. We're good, guys. Throw her in the jail book. Okay, but so yeah, that's the VIVRE card video. You know, not as long as my other ones, but at the end of the day, they really are just sheets of paper. I got more out of it than I thought I would. You know, when we first got introduced to them, they were interesting, but over the years, they've just become a normal part of the One Piece world, kind of like the Den Den Mushi and the dials. I'm sure the first time we saw dials, or you read at that point in the story, the Skypiea arc, you were like, whoa, seashells, and they can shoot fire and stuff? That's crazy. Now they're just like normal pieces of technology they have. Same thing with these. Here's something else I thought you could do with them. You could actually use VIVRE cards to keep track of prisoners. Okay, so let's say there's you know, people and impel down and stuff, and you could make VIVRE cards from them, like forcibly taking part of their, you know, their fingernails or their hair or whatever. Make VIVRE cards of the prisoners, and, you know, if they escape or something, you'll know exactly where they are at all times. Because I don't think there's a way for the person that has the VIVRE card made of them to sever that connection. There might be a way, but we haven't seen that so far. Like, if you think if there was a way to do that, Big Mom would have severed the connection between her and, you know, the VIVRE card that Nami had, Lola's, that Lola gave her, right? But she didn't do that. In fact, she was really concerned about it. You know, Big Mom's VIVRE cards are very special, okay? But everybody, it seems like, yeah, you know, if somebody can just, like, sneak up on you and take part of your skin or your fingernail or whatever they need to make it, you know, they can always keep tabs on you wherever you are in the world. They won't know your exact location, but it's kind of like, you ever see the movie It Follows? That ghost or whatever the hell that thing was, and it always knows where you're at all times, and it's always walking directly towards you. It's just, you know, it'll be there eventually. It's just, it might take weeks or months or maybe years depending on where you're at in the world, but it'll always know generally where you're at. It's kind of the same thing with the VIVRE card. Like, you get out of prison, you escape Impel Down, but Magellan and the world government will always know generally where you're hiding out, so you always got to be moving, because if you stay in one place for too long, they'll get you. All right, so yeah, that's an interesting way you can use it, although I don't think they did that in Impel Down, but they could have, I guess. I mean, I'm sure the government and the Marines could make VIVRE cards if they wanted to, right? But anyway, yeah, thanks for watching the video, guys. This will be Tekking101 signing out. Now I'm gonna go frame these VIVRE cards. Very important. I'm gonna make sure nobody they don't get any dust on them, nobody takes them. These are like my prized possession, okay? All right. See ya. Fun fact, kami is Japanese for paper. It's also Japanese for God. And it's also Japanese for hair, which would be kami kami kami.